Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Off the Rack. I am Sal, and the show is, let's just call it what it is. It's like 98% worse. I'm sorry, but Tiffany is sick. She's not feeling great, so we're just going to roll with it. I don't want you guys to miss our thoughts on comics. I will give you any insights I can from Tiffany as we go, but as it stands right now, show's going to be, not a lot more testosterone, but certainly quite a bit more because it's just me. But yeah, so I'm excited to get into the comics. But before we do, of course, we got the usual housekeeping to get through. First of all, I want to thank everybody for watching. Make sure that you know that this show is sponsored by viewers like you. You're watching the show live, you can sponsor today's show and use Super Chats. Ask a question or comment, we'll read it here on the show. And we are going to be relying a little bit more heavily on those than usual because we're 50% fewer hosts, but more importantly, it's again, like it's 98% worse because Tiffany isn't here to lend her insight. But I promise you, she will be returning next week, or at the very least when we can, when the next show is, which should presumably be next Monday, but you never know what's going to happen. But more importantly, Tiffany will be back. So yeah, it's sponsor today's show by using Super Chats. Of course, if you want to help us out more further, you can always go to our patreon.com/ComicPop and help us out there. And big news at the top of the hour, of course, is that this Monday, today, 9/16, is the absolute final last day that you can pre-order the first issue of Dynamite's Terminator book. Now, why on earth would you do that? Well, first of all, Terminator is a dope brand. Secondly, it's been a long time since there's been a Terminator comic book on the shelves. And third, Declan Shalvey and Luke Sparrow have constructed a fantastic narrative that has, at least the first arc, is really super cool, really exciting stuff. He's already shared a bunch of stuff about going about what that story is going to entail, but I won't share it here. But if you are wondering what the personal connection is, it's because me and artist/colorist Colin Craker have paired up to do a backup in the first 5 issues of the Terminator series from Dynamite. So every issue of Terminator, from 1 at least to 5, will feature 2 pages of a 10-page total story that is completely original. It's a composition by me and with fantastic art by Colin. If you haven't already checked him out, you should definitely check out Colin Craker's work. He's available on social media and so forth. Craker. But yeah, I've seen the pages for the first issue, and they're cool. I'm very excited. And honestly, that's the idea. Is like, I just wanted it to be cool. I want it to be something that you're excited about. You may have seen me already. I was live on the Brave and the Boys podcast, just hawking Terminator. But yes, so today's the last day to pre-order the book. If you're interested, make sure to contact your local comic book store. If you are on the fence, well, hopefully there'll be a copy for you at the comic book store. It goes on sale on October 9th of this year. So the same day that Absolute Batman comes out, Terminator will be on the shelf. You can pick up a book with my name presumably on it somewhere, probably more towards the back. But yeah, so that's exciting. I'm really thrilled about that. As far as comic book news, it's harder to have a conversation with yourself unless you are me and you're in the car. But if you're doing a show and you're trying not to look like an insane person, then yeah, we'll probably just keep it to a minimum. Instead, we'll just stick with the comic books. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for, of course, their incredible support. I want to thank the amazing podcasters and YouTubers who have had me on the show to allow me to do kind of like a tour, and more especially I want to thank the good people at Dynamite and Declan and company for allowing me this opportunity to put my name, my stamp on the Terminator franchise, which is a franchise that I hold near and dear to my heart. I also want to do a little bit more housekeeping while we're doing this. Baltimore Comic-Con is a con that I go to every year. I love that show. I love going to it. It's a fantastic con. I highly recommend you go. I will not be there. Instead, I got family stuff, which is happening the following week, but I want to make sure I'm available and that I don't screw anything up. So no me, but heartbroken to find Ben Edlund, creator of The Tick, will be at Baltimore Comic-Con. So if you're interested in going to Baltimore Comic-Con and you need one more reason, you should go. But Tom King and so forth, like a lot of creators are going to be there. But New York Comic-Con, you can bet your bottom dollar that the ComicPop crew will be there at least one of the days. Me and Tiffany, probably all the days. Certainly I'll be there every day. But yeah, I'm hyped. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking for an opportunity to really expand. And every year I do that. In fact, if you are a patron, you are a member of our podcast, the Red Raider podcast, which is a dedicated behind the curtain kind of look at what's going on at Comic Pop. And I almost always mention when there's a con coming up how I really want to make sure that this is the con where we like upset the apple cart and shift the paradigm and really change things up or get back to our roots. And it's we never do. We do shoot some stuff, and we have a ton of footage from the last 2 San Diego Comic-Cons. And in fact, I think New York is one of those things where we always make a video and make sure that goes out. But I don't know. But this year, I think I've got an idea. I think I've got a plan, and it honestly came to me when we were at San Diego Comic-Con this year. And if you haven't already checked out on this channel, which you should like the video, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell for notifications so you know when we're going live. You might have caught my interview with Jason Aaron, where we talk about Turtles, and my chat with Scott Snyder, which we had one here on this show that was dedicated specifically to DC All In and Absolute Batman. But if you follow us on socials and you're following us on like TikTok and Instagram Reels and stuff like that, there's like a little vertical video. I think it's actually up on this channel. If it's not, it's up on the main ComicPop Prime channel, where Scott and I were just hyping up the Absolute Batman. So doing those interviews and chatting it up with Josh Williamson, co-host of All Stars, which is a podcast here on this channel as well. I mentioned that we were put on the list for potential interviews with people at DC, and he's like, "Oh, you should do those." And I was like, "Yeah, but what are we going to talk about?" And I don't want to like make dedicated videos necessarily because I was worried people might not respond to them and stuff like that. But like the reality is, who cares, and in fact, I care. I want to see more of that prevalent, and I think because we've been doing this for so long, we might have a unique insight. We might be able to make some pretty good content out of it. So I'm hoping to kind of dabble back into the world of interviews at cons. How do we make ourselves different? How do we differentiate? Well, we need very good audio, and we need to make sure we have a very good looking video and zhuzh it up a little bit. What I mean by that is, make it look a little more fun, where however we figure that out, whether it's on the floor, in the green room, wherever we figure it out. But I'm hoping to do that. That's my like through line. That's how I'm gonna try and make the convention situation a little bit more exciting. So anyway, if you want to see us New York Comic Con as we get into October, we will pin down a location for a Comic Pop meet and greet, so you can meet the team and say hello and take some selfies. And otherwise, if you see us on the floor at any con, make sure to say hello, and we'll be happy to hang out and chat. So in addition to that, let's talk about some comic books. So I talked about this last week because IDW was kind enough to make sure that I had a copy, but Jason Aaron and Raphael Albuquerque's second issue of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has dropped officially now, and so you can and have already been able to get a copy of the now new ongoing relaunch of the Turtles series from IDW. Every issue focuses on a different turtle. Every issue until we're done focusing on the Turtles will be by a different high-profile artist. This one's Raphael Albuquerque. Awesome issue. Really, really fun. Michelangelo's in Japan trying to make a life for himself. He's become a kind of, I don't know, I guess I could call him like a Jackie Chan type because it's like a comedy action star, but which of course really suits that character. But you can also see the like Last Ronin influence on Michelangelo in this because he is tormented by his insecurities surrounding his brothers because they all have defining attributes that are not the jokester or the party dude. And so as a result, like he's more insecure than ever. And of course, because he's untethered from his brothers, he feels like he's looking for structure, and even though he's found great success, he feels even more empty and hollow than before until a version of the Foot clan has shows up and tries to assassinate him. He bumps into, or rather is rescued by, his brother Raph, but their reunion is anything but a welcome, loving embrace. It actually ends up becoming kind of a fight. So you get to see at least the teasing of a Raphael versus Michelangelo fight, which is something that I don't think I've ever really seen before. I certainly am interested in seeing the result of it, but issue 3 will be coming out soon enough, which will focus entirely on Leonardo. But I think the idea is it's not just, each issue, because the first issue was like, here is, and I think Joel Jones did the art for that one. That one was Raphael. This one's Michelangelo. Next one's Leonardo. But it looks like as we go, we're also snowballing the turtle. So it's like the first issue was entirely Raphael. Second issue, here's Michelangelo and also Raphael. So I'll bet the third issue will be like, here's Leonardo and Michelangelo and Raphael. I feel like we're going to be getting the whole band back together. By the way, the artist on the next issue, Cliff Chong, and that comes out on October 23rd. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. But we'll talk more about that when we get into the recommendations. Of course, this show, by the way, should be pointed out, we're going to be doing reviews. We're going to pick out a book of the week, and then we're going to be recommending books that are coming out this week that we think you should check out. I also had a chance to read Amazing Spider-Man 57. I don't know. I'm morbidly curious about this book at this point. John Romita Jr., Zeb Wells. I'm not going to harp on it because I know that, I think it's better. Certainly, the audience, I think, responds better to positivity than to consistent regimented negativity, and that's what this book exemplifies. But there are some real standouts in this issue, particularly John Romita Jr.'s art. There are some moments where it's just like, there he is. There's jazzy John Romita Jr. just doing his thing, doing it well. John Romita Jr., for those of you who don't remember, he drew the absolute hell out of an Iron Man series, the Iron Man series, but his Iron Man book, so awesome looking. And if you need one example of John Romita Jr.'s art just on full display and having it be really awesome, you need to check out his Fin Fang Foom. There's this full page. There's actually, Fin Fang Foom is so big, and it's like, look, the character's really big. He's like bigger than a skyscraper. How do you capture that in a book starring a regular sized man? In this, or in that, Romita Jr. manages to conceptualize Fin Fang Foom not as like a thought cloud or some nonsense. He's just a big effing dragon, but he is so just encompassing. He can't fit on the page. And so when you do finally pull back, you get to see the scope and the magnitude of Fin Fang Foom. And it's just so awesome. And it's like, it's the image I have of Fin Fang Foom every time that he comes up. Well, I mean that, and I guess I have to say the next wave Fin Fang Foom. But a close second is John Romita Jr.'s Fin Fang Foom. It's just so cool and big and epic. And I'm gonna share with you just this image here. Look at this. You can see the Mandarin, or I think it's attending monks, I don't remember, in the bottom corner there, but just the focus, the detail, the line work, it captures this image of a dragon at rest. And it's just this is the John Romita Jr. that I think of. And there are moments like this throughout John Romita Jr.'s career. And while, it's been 30 years since that book, Romita Jr. still has some great moments left. And they are still inherent, even in books that don't that don't seem to use his talents to their fullest extent, like Amazing Spider-Man, which is a book I can't recommend, but it's weird. So Spider-Man, he it got the better of Tombstone in the last issue. In this issue, we find out, no, Tombstone actually got the better of him. Ha ha, who cares? Okay, whatever. It's fine. Speaking of books that I enjoyed, of course, Batman and Robin number 13 from Joshua Williamson and Juan Ferreira. Gang, this is the final issue of Batman and Robin by this creative team from the mind of Joshua Williamson. Joshua Williamson is off Batman and Robin. This is the last one. You could tell he's having fun. It's funny because when Josh and I have talked about this book, he really has just this kind of jubilant childlike affinity for it, where he's just kind of oh man, I'm having fun. It's not a high stakes book, even though it's a Batman book. It's just fun and joyful. And it really focuses on giving you a dynamic that you don't normally see, or a dynamic that you may think you have a bead on, but in this book manages to help you dissuade you of that. But you watch Batman and Robin team up and fight Bane and Vengeance on Dinosaur Island along with Cobra. You think that might be too crowded, but it isn't. And in fact, there's more characters in there as well. But yeah, Damian gets shot with Venom. He gets bulked out. This is the kind of thing that really appeals to me, because obviously you could have done an entire arc where Damian is roided out with Venom and Batman tries to talk him down. The first moment, Batman tries to reason with him, and Damian slaps him away, and then he has to chase him, and the whole Batman family has to take him down. And Red Hood's like, "We gotta kill him," and everyone's like, "No, we're not gonna kill him." And then it's just exhausting at this point. It's tedious. It's like what Taylor Swift says at the end of that song, where she's just like, "It's just exhausting." You know what I mean? But in this, it's just Batman and Robin kicking ass, taking names, fighting dinosaurs, Bane, vengeance. Cobra's also there and being what you would expect Cobra to be, which is ineffectual and filling up the background. Bane, of course, is like, I deserve to be in jail. I thought I could seek refuge in Dinosaur Island, but I know there's no peace anywhere I go, which is very much in keeping with Bane's character. And it's fun. It's just a fun like fight. Like, oh, watch Batman and Damian deal with vengeance, Bane's clone daughter, and Bane. And it's cool. The art's fantastic. Ferreira does a great job giving you big splashy action sequences and rendering dinosaurs and jungle habitats and roided out Damian does look a little extreme, like in these books. Now, look, he is filled with a super science steroid formula that makes him bigger than a house, but like, he has a couple of facial expressions where he's just like, all right, Damian, yikes. And of course, the story is punctuated by Damian being back in school and kind of like trying to figure out who he is and being asked by the guidance counselor, who are you? And obviously, it's a question you can't necessarily answer because you're a little kid, but it's still worth asking. And it's one that you should return to every once in a while and make sure that you pose to yourself to help grow. And so, it's a nice little story. It's a great little narrative where, okay, you watch the stories about Damian realizing who he is while also being transformed and also reconnecting with his father and, letting go of his anger and pain and frustration with Bane and his like failure to save Alfred and so forth. So, it's cool. It's a lot of that. It's a fun issue and a good farewell to Joshua Williamson and company, who made this book what it is. Like when he said that he was leaving the book, I remember being like, well, then like the book's over, right? And he's like, no, there's a new creative team. And I'm like, you launched this book. Not that like Batman and Robin was a book that didn't exist before, obviously it did, but like it seemed to come from a place of Williamson wanting to show you Damian and Batman's relationship, especially in a place where when it launched, it was strained externally. Like every other Robin was strained from Batman except for Damian. So it was interesting to watch that whole thing kind of like come full circle. So that was fun. Pardon me. But yeah, Batman and Robin 13, I recommend it. And I'm interested in seeing where it goes from here. The next creative team, by the way, if you were interested, is Philip Kennedy Johnson and Javier Fernandez is doing the next arc. Or at the very least, the next issue, which, of course, will be coming on sale on October 9th when Terminator and Absolute Batman come out. So you can check that out as well. Moving right along, I also read from the DC Vault, Death in the Family, Robin Lives #3 from J.M. DeMatteis and Rick Leonardi. This is the penultimate issue of this What If series, which features, of course, Jason Todd Robin. It's taking place during that period. Although DeMatteis plays fast and loose with the continuity because, something shifted in the story and in the continuity. So anything can happen now. And he's because DeMatteis was working around that time. I'm sure he remembers a lot of the kind of the surrounding details. So he's able to weave in things where he remembers. I mean, obviously, even when it comes to like the visual identity of the book, it needs to look like it's from like the late 80s. But it's fun. So, Batman, the whole story, like many DeMatteis stories, is a psychodrama about the human condition and about the inner turmoil of the duality of your lives. And so obviously it's about Jason Todd being like, am I, should I be Robin? Was it a mistake? Who am I now? He's got Survivor's Guild. He's got all kinds of things going on. He's got to prove himself that he is Robin, but also, Batman's got the similar turmoil where he's like, why did I even create Robin? Maybe I'm crazy. Obviously then Dick Grayson shows up and that complicates matters for Batman because he's like, oh no, now I have another living example of my failures, even though Dick Grayson's actually kind of a monument to his triumphs. It's like actually a best case scenario for Batman taking in young wards and training them to become weapons in a one-man war against crime. So you have that balance, which DeMatteis, of course, does expertly. Again, Leonardi's art is very different from the way that you may remember him if you remember him from like his Spider-Man 2099 series back in the day. it's much more, I want to say like Klaus Janson-y. It's very sketchy. It's very gritty. And through it all, there's also the Joker in there, and Leonardi plays fast and loose with the like character design of Joker and how it shifts, which I think is interesting also because the whole thing is about madness and about, you know, identity, and so it would make sense that there's like an inconsistency to the nature of Joker's like look, because of course Joker's also nothing if not chaotic. But yeah, that's fun. It is of course continuing to be about the psychiatrist that DeMatteis invents for Batman and Jason Todd to visit and help understand themselves better. Of course, we're building towards Bruce Wayne falling in love with her, and Jason Todd inevitably either like dying again or retiring from the mantle of Robin. Because it's interesting, we're in a place where we're revisiting this material from like 1988, right? They introduced Tim in 89. So Tim Drake, there wasn't even a calendar year that went by without Tim Drake existing. So like there is this understanding of Tim Drake looming, even if there's absolutely no reference to it whatsoever within this book. And it was only when I read this that I thought of it. And it's because Batman says something like, "I've ruined 2 lives. I have ruined 2 young boys' lives." I'm like, "Oh wait, no, there's plenty more lives to ruin." But that's funny because like it didn't occur to me until now, what will become of Tim now that Jason still exists? Because without Jason, Tim doesn't get motivated. Like, because the idea was that like Tim recognized that Batman needed a Robin because there was a lack of Robins, for lack of a better term. So what will happen to him? Will that be kind of like our button on the series where it's like, this is the lesson. The lesson is Batman was wrong to bring in Robins. The cycle ends with Jason. And so you get to see like Tim Drake just become great. Hell, maybe we get to see Tim Drake like become Mr. Terrific's sidekick or Ted Kord's sidekick, or maybe he just becomes a really smart guy and invents some stuff and lives happily ever after. I don't know, but it's very interesting to see that whole thing, or at least speculated on it. By the way, that's all subtext. That's all just like implicit because I didn't think about any of that until now. This really is about Batman, Jason, and the new psychiatrist character that the DeMatteis invents. I love Gavin's point. Jack Drake will have a better time. Well, certainly. Yeah. Captain Boomerang has no incentive to go visit the Drakes at any point. So that's fun. But yeah, so obviously Death in the Family, Robin Lives. It's a fun book. I don't know. It's not fair to say who asked for this, because like who asked for anything, but it's fun to see this and have it continue, today, because like I know why in like the early 90s Marvel published a what if the Avengers lost, Operation Galactic Storm, because in many ways that was a promotion for like the fledgling early days of trade paperbacks for Operation Galactic Storm. So it's like, yeah, it's smart and it's on people's minds. Like I don't know what the motivation is necessarily to like ape onto a story that's 35 years old or more. That being said, you could do worse than this pairing. This creative team is doing a great job, and it's fun. And I think that like it is important when it comes to seminal stories like these, because like Jason Todd has been Red Hood for over 20 years. And for many people, for what one would hope is a huge portion of the comic book reading audience, they've never read a story, or rather they've never grown up reading a story or in continuity of Jason Todd being Robin or anything other than Red Hood. Like I grew up reading books knowing Jason Todd was a corpse. So for me, that's kind of like my identity for Jason Todd. But for a lot of people, I can imagine them going like, hey, I don't know anything other than Jason Todd being Red Hood. So this is kind of like a nice little check-in to remind people about like the ever expanding continuity and the like, the ongoing saga of the serialized storytelling fiction that is comic books. So, it's fun. It's a good book. I like it a lot. I highly recommend it if you're interested in kind of revisiting that period. And again, DeMatteis pays attention. So it's not like someone who's like, hey, I'm hungry and I'm excited and I remember like the trophy in the video game Batcave, so I'm down. And so here you go, and I'm just gonna make up stuff because editorial is oftentimes the sleep at the wheel. No, this is like, even if there weren't a terrific editor on this book, DeMatteis would edit himself. So that's kind of nice. And he's still got the chops. That's the most important thing, of course, is that he's actually able to put his money where his mouth is. Wolverine debuted with a brand new issue from Saladin Ahmed and Martin Kokolo. This is the second new Wolverine series, though this promises to be the ongoing Wolverine book. Right away, I'm immediately struck by a fantastic cover and, the classic costume and this, a new ongoing Wolverine series makes a lot of sense, and of course completely devoid of any X-Men stuff, although you can see the From the Ashes in there. That's a big selling point for Marvel at the very least. It's like, hey, listen, we're still doing the whole From the Ashes thing. We just launched all these different books. Please, for the love of God, buy them all like you did before. I don't see that happening, but good for them. So yeah, Wolverine. Saladin Ahmed, I was not a huge fan of his Daredevil book, so I was kind of reticent to pick this up. But when Tiffany was sick and she couldn't do the show, I was like, I'm gonna read this, and I was pleasantly surprised. Wolverine strips naked, goes into the woods, and joins a pack of wolves, which he's wont to do. Cyber, classic original Wolverine villain that has been oft ignored or maligned in his histories, if you ask classic Cyber fans, shows up and I think represents, because I think too often you'll find that if there's any remnants, any characters that you don't necessarily see a lot of prominence or don't have a movie tie-in, if they come back at all, they're often brought back as a kind of like, I remember the old days, now let's kill them and replace them with a new version or a fun new character I've invented, or showcase their defeat to prop up my character. Like, it's a formula at this point. But no, Cyber's well, and that more or less happens. But Cyber does get most of the book, where he hunts down and murders people and wolves, trying to get Wolverine out, and then Wolverine and Cyber have a fun fight. And I think, it's been a long time since Wolverine and Cyber have actually fought. And seeing this, I'm like, I mean, how could you ask for more? Kokolo's art is great. It's visceral and fun, and much more grounded than I would normally expect from like a brand new Wolverine book. And so I think it's fun. I think it works. Nightcrawler inserts himself into the story because why not? To kind of remind you that Wolverine will, despite the fact that like everyone in everyone else's book except for Uncanny X-Men is like, Wolverine's not going to be an X-Men anymore, except for him literally being one in Uncanny X-Men. Nightcrawler's here to remind everybody, don't worry. It says From the Ashes on the roof, on the roof of the book, on the cover. So don't worry, he'll be in the X-Men. All right, watch me team up with him and then immediately get taken off the board. Oh well. So and then there's like this weird kind of like twist at the end, which I was like, yep, that's what we live in. That's the world we live in. And when I say that, I'm like, so there's this like, it wraps up with this kind of like sentient goop that seeks to eradicate adamantium itself. And so it gets onto Cyber, because Cyber, of course, made, or rather has adamantium skin. But it's gold, silver and gold. Oh, I was actually tempted to call this episode "The Death of Adamantium," because that's clearly like the pitch here. Just like, what if Daredevil was an exorcist? This one is like, what if Adamantium had like a Joker, and then wanted to eradicate it. And I'm like, all I could think about was like, oh yeah, vibranium's a problem. Let's make vibranium inert. Or, oh man, yeah, super soldier serums don't work. Let's make that go away. Like, I just like, I've had enough of the of the let's kill the status quo. Like it, for my money, it's been way too long that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been like shuttered or mothballed. Like, I'm just kind of like, let's put it back, shall we? And not just for nostalgia's case, but also because like, there was a reason we had some of these things, and because they fill in the gaps, or especially because as like pop culture continues to insert itself into comic books, people keep going like, hey, where's Shields? Hey, what's up with adamantium? Why does Wolverine have no nose? Like when they're reading old books or when they're seeing some TikTok that goes like, did you know? And then they don't know either because they just threw it through like an AI generated thing and then put it through CapCut, and then that's the end of it. Oops. But yeah, so like, I get it. It's such a modern hook at this point to be like, here's a classic story that features Wolverine fighting a classic or old school character. And we're going to see Wolverine doing classic Wolverine things. But then at the end, forget everything you've ever known about or like get ready for the death of everything I'm just like, I don't know. And look, I know you can't just do like Daredevil eats a ham sandwich and he loved it. You have to like mix it up. But again, I don't know. Maybe it's knowing about the hooks and the log lines and the teasers, like knowing that that's how comics are made and how they're pitched. Like you will never look at adamantium the same way. Like there's just, that like there's a pitch document that says like the death of adamantium, or like, ladies and gentlemen, we're taking adamantium off the table. Maybe or not. I don't know. But it could go one of two ways. But and it's funny because I was actually praising Mark Waid because he's been there, done that, and and still had time for more. We talked about Absolute Power last week. There's a moment where like Jonathan Kent is kind of like a complicated character at this point. And it's got to be like a nightmare to publish books featuring that character, especially if it's like starring Jonathan Kent, because no matter what you're doing, you're gonna have to encounter some measure of like loud annoyances from the peanut gallery. And so I can imagine that if you are constantly bombarded with it, or if you have to like have like a document, I don't know this to be true, I'm just speculating at this point, but if you have to have like a document associated with certain triggering characters and go like, by the way, if you publish a book, let's use a character that's completely innocuous. Like, by the way, if you have to publish a book featuring Ambush Bug, you should know that there's a contingent of people online who have like Google alerts set up for Ambush Bug. So if you say or type or post Ambush Bug, these people show up and they dox people and they post stuff and then they make YouTube videos and they make more money using those videos than we do off of the character. And so you should know that like if you have to like try and use an ampersand or a different thing, just make sure to get around it. Or like you have a conversation where it's like, hey, before you even think about Ambush Bug, could it be the heckler? Like, could it be anybody else? And it's just like, what an exhausting time it must be to work in comic books, especially big two, but like in comic books in general. And I just feel for them because, by the way, that is a like true effing story about like that nonsense, but just not about Ambush Bug. And it's like, I can imagine that being really frustrating, but knowing about all these, like all this stuff, it's kind of like, oh yeah. And also like, we got to kill adamantium. I'm like, okay, well, I hope that gets people excited. Like, I hope that it works for somebody. Daredevil being an exorcist, I'm like, it's not a bad pitch. Like, you know what? If you after you're off the Zdarsky run, you don't have anything else to do. Like, that's not a bad pitch. But when it comes to the rest of the book, I was like, yeah, all right, I'm off. But yeah, so it's a good book though. Like, I enjoyed it. I like the art. I like the story, and it's just that hook. I'm like. But flowers as well. Gold Cyber looks kind of fun, so I'm down. And who knows? Maybe you're gonna get like a weird fight between like sentient sentient adamantium and sentient goldenium, and then they like try to fight each other, and one has a stronger will than the other. I don't know. Anyway, so Wolverine. It's a good. It's not a bad entry for a new ongoing Wolverine series. It pays homage to the old while getting you excited for the new. So that's pretty cool. All right, cool. And I guess one of our biggest books of the week, because as I pointed out, Tiffany's not here. She's not feeling well, so it's just me keeping it kind of trim on this episode of Off the Rack. So also, we're going to be missing her insights, unfortunately, to not only the books that I talked about, but also books that she would have talked about. And I only had so much time to work on these. Like, we don't get to talk about Vengeance Moon Knight and stuff. But yeah, I also read Spider-Man Reign 2 #3 from Kari Andrews. This is just the most insane, unhinged, ridiculous book. And it is made for a very specific target demographic. And I gotta tell you, if you were a McFarlane fan on Spider-Man, I don't know why you're not buying this book. If you're not buying this book is a love letter to 90s Spider-Man. Like straight up 1991 Spider-Man. So, obviously, if you don't remember, or if we didn't talk about it in a while in the last issue, old man Spider-Man from Spider-Man Reign gets sent back in time along with a little black cat and a little goblin, thanks to Norman Osborn. And Spider-Man's like, that's it, I gotta save Mary Jane. So he goes out and he just tears things up and people die. It's a huge effing mess. And Peter Parker has just completely screwed everything up. Also, coincidental, and much to the delight, I'm sure, of Sony and so forth, there's no other superheroes in this book outside of Spider-Man and Spider-Man adjacent characters. So it's like, it's perfect for adaptation from Sony. But Spider-Man is just tearing up the city and causing trouble. Meanwhile, little Black Cat and her goblin person are just driving around, just staying out of the way of all the 90s references. And what we revealed in the last issue was Mary Jane and the Venom symbiote in this reality, in this timeline that Spider-Man has gone back to, have joined. And so you get sexy Venom or something. So Spider-Man gets a little history lesson about what happened. And also Miles Morales is here. And old Miles is, because Kari's like playing ball, I guess. Miles is working for some kind of like a TVA, but Spider-Man related. So it's like a Miguel O'Hara kind of situation from the movies. It's, by the way, we don't actually get a good insight into how that all works or whether it's directly connected with any movies or any like movie accoutrements, but it's just Miles is a time cop who sent back in time to stop Peter. And he seems to be like, oh no, he's at it again. And you're like, what do you mean again? Last time I saw Peter was in like a tube, in like a kind of holographic reality where he got to be whatever he wanted, but he was only just miserable and punishing himself. So now he's got an opportunity to go back in time, and he does, and he screws everything up. And then Miles shows up. Miles is also old, but like less old, I guess. So Miles is chasing Peter, but he's not in the book. So don't get excited about this cover, which suggests, ooh, it's Spider-Man versus Spider-Man, as Old Man Pete and Old Man Miles come to blows. They will, I'm sure, in the next issue. That's what the last page reveal is. But as Spider-Man tears up New York and is webbed up by his wife, we see a kind of like flashback to Spider-Man 299. And it literally says, like, this happens immediately after the events of Spider-Man's fight with Chance in Spider-Man 299. I'm like, okay. And so Mary Jane goes out. She gets, she goes on a shopping spree. She gets mugged. She is rescued by Eddie Brock Venom, which is actually kind of a smart, like, retcon, because it's interesting to see, like, this is how Eddie knew where Peter lived, except Eddie didn't know necessarily that MJ and Peter were married. So I don't know. In any case, Eddie saves Mary Jane, and then she like kisses him on the cheek and tells him he's a nice guy, and he leaves. And she comes home, and I guess because of her encounter with Eddie and her being kind to him, Eddie decides, I'm going to give up my whole thing. And or maybe it purges the symbiote. I don't know. For all we know, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the art is rad, and it looks like, a love letter to McFarlane Spider-Man. So it's just off the wall, off the charts. No other comic book on the shelf looks like this. So Mary Jane comes home, and it's a perfect recreation of the moment that is the first appearance of Venom. But instead of Venom appearing, Peter has presumably killed himself. And so you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And he leaves a note that says, I'm sorry. And so she is like horrified and upset. And then we go through the whole rigmarole of Peter's funeral until eventually she announces that she hates Spider-Man, or rather Peter Parker. Then the symbiote comes for her, and then she joins with Venom, and then she and the suit work together along with Fisk to create the web, which forces all the heroes out of Manhattan so that no other superheroes can be in the Spider-Man book. And then it turns out that the big reveal is this isn't the first time that Peter has gone back in time and screwed things up. And in fact, that time that made Mary Jane Venom was perpetrated by this old man Spider-Man who's gone back in time and he killed his younger alternate timeline self to make sure that she didn't get, cancer from his radioactive spider semen. Because don't worry, that's like always going to be a plot point. We're never going to undo that. So it works perfectly within the context of this story and this Peter. This Peter is just such a nut job that he doesn't even remember going back in time and having done all this stuff. But every time he goes back in time, he screws up the world more, which of course is another fun element of time travel stories, which is like, okay, we're going to put that in here too. Pardon me. So, so then she slaps him around, leaves him for the cops. And then Miles shows up and punches him in the face. Like, it's just like, what? Like, this book is insane. But some classic looking Spider-Man stuff, some really insane art from Kari. He's just really just going for it. And it's not just homage. Like, it's not just like, oh, I'm approximating McFarlane style. He's like, he's adding his own flair and making it that much more exciting and kind of topical, I guess. It's really interesting to see. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And it's weird and insane. And I'm just kind of like, I'm here for it. So I kind of love it. I don't know why. I think in another time, another place, I probably wouldn't, but I do. So the question is, what's the book of the week for me? I mean, I kind of want to give it to Spider-Man, but I think in honor of Joshua Williamson wrapping up his run, I'm going to give it to Batman and Robin number 13 because it's a swan song for Williamson. We don't know what he's going to do next from leaving this book, and so I hope it works out for this series afterwards. I'm sure it will. Kennedy Johnson's a fan favorite, and it's going to be a terrific book. But if you haven't already read it, you might enjoy it, especially if you want to read about like a well-adjusted Batman working with a Damian that I can stand. So that's fun. But as far as super chats go, let's jump into them, shall we? Joshua Link, hey, happy FOC day for Terminator. I got mine pre-ordered. Thank you very much, Joshua Link. If you're wondering what Josh was talking about, if you just dropped in, today is the final order cutoff for ordering or pre-ordering Terminator number 1 from Dynamite, which features a backup written by yours truly. By the way, the backup is 10 pages, 2 pages at a time per issue. So you're not going to get all 10 pages. You're going to get the first 2, and then, second issue, you're going to get pages 3, 4, etc. So check that out. But yeah, thank you very much, Joshua. Hulkzilla, wishing Tiffany was well. Also got my Terminator pre-order. Woo! Nicely done. Thank you very much, Hulkzilla. And yes, we are all wishing Tiffany well. I hope she's, enjoying the show from bed. But thank you so much for that. And we do appreciate it, man. We miss her very much. Certainly, the show is lacking as a result. I am Awakeify. Hope Tiffany gets better soon. Just had job interview. Fingers crossed. Well, break a leg. Good luck to you, man. I hope it all goes well. Don't let them blow you off. Hey Sal, what are your thoughts on comic writers revisiting runs by novels? Interesting. I have rarely ever checked them out. There was an Ender's Game comic. There's been a number of books based off of, or comic books based off, not the Dark Tower comics as well. I've read some of them. Like, I have read some of the Dark Tower. I read a bit more of The Stand when that was a comic book. Nah. I don't know why, but I don't know. I don't know why, but I don't really connect with them. However, there's things like Animal Pound, which was more of an adaptation / reimagining of Animal Farm. But Animal Farm also is a book completely devoid of character, so it might as well be something else. And I don't mean to disparage the great work of George Orwell, but Animal Farm it's a representation of that peer. It's not an actual like story so much as it is just kind of like Orwell complaining about like Trotsky and stuff. So, all the characters are stand-ins. That happens with Animal Pound as well, but at least there's cute animals in it. Bryce Harriet, thank you for your generosity. He says, good evening. Good evening to you, too. It's my 25th birthday. Well, happy birthday to you, Bryce Harriet. Thank you so much. I have Terminator pre-ordered. Thank you very much. Nice birthday gift for me. Flash is awesome. And Ultimate Black Panther makes my fantasy nerd heart very happy. Here's to more years of getting to watch you. Well, certainly, I'll drink to that. Thank you very much, Bryce. And thank you so much for your generosity. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, no, definitely. If Tiffany was on this episode, we would have talked about Ultimate Black Panther. I don't remember. Did Flash come out? If it did, then yeah, we really missed out because that's a phenomenal book, according to Tiffany, and I don't disagree with her. Stupid Sandwich. Hey Sal, happy Monday. Happy Monday to you too. Wishing Tiffany well. And also, I just watched your episode of Harbor Patrol from 4 years ago, and I plan to watch the second half tonight. The episode was fun. Hope you do more. Thank you, Stupid Sandwich. Yes, I was actually thinking about this recently. Harbor Patrol. It is an RPG. Remember when everybody was making RPG shows? Well, we were no exception. We jumped on the bandwagon. We used the DC Adventures RPG. We played a superhero RPG where me, Tiffany, Ben, and special guest Peter dropped in and did a whole several hour campaign. And it was not wildly successful, but it was certainly largely successful, especially for us making something drastically different. And it wouldn't perform nearly as well today as it did back then. But a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of money went into that show. And I'm really, really proud of it. I hope you guys, if you haven't already seen it, you should check it out. Harbor Patrol, ComicPop, you'll find it, no problem. But I would love to revisit that universe, or rather a universe not unlike it that has fewer and fewer specific IPs that are owned by other companies. But yeah, I would love to go back to Harbor Patrol. And I had many different ways of bringing it back that I've gone over the last 4 years. But thank you for checking it out. Kieran Weisenberg, sup Sal, what's up, man? Congrats on Terminator gig, super exciting. I agree, Kieran, thank you so much, man. Nat Reeds, hi, new fan. Well, thank you very much, Nat. Welcome to the show. Reading Watchmen for the first time this week. Got it from the DC Compact Comics. Wishing everyone happy reading. Keep up the great work. You too, Nat. I'm glad you checked that out. I'm glad the Compact Comics worked out. What you got to do necessarily, you got to if you're not sure, if Watchmen doesn't hit the way you would expect, try reading some standard big two comics to get an idea about what more is subverting with it, because I find that Watchmen is a seminal important work, but also that it's the same way with, I think I talked about this last episode, Dark Knight Returns. If you just read Dark Knight Returns, it's a cool rad Batman story that is not a surprise. But if you've read regular Batman stories before 1986 and then read it, it hits a little harder. And Watchmen is one of those things. But I'm glad the DC Compact Comics reached you. And so tell us, do you prefer the smaller format? I like it. I like the fact that it's normalizing people's enjoyment of comics, certainly getting more comics in the hands of people who wouldn't necessarily pick them up. T480, hello. Hope Tiffany's feeling better. I will let her know that. Excited for Terminator. Thank you very much. Me too. Did you see Matt Reeves change Penguin's name from Oz Cobb to be more pretentious? I mean, grounded. He did change Riddler's last name as well. Yeah, he does what he wants. I mean, I don't care about what Matt Reeves thinks or wants to do with Batman. I mean, he made a great Batman movie that I loved and I would love to see more of. And I would especially love to now take that universe that he made and shove it into the DC universe and allow James Gunn to kind of have oversight over it. I know that people are really upset with me about that. We just released a snippet of that conversation from last week's Off the Rack and put it up on TikTok, and it's doing pretty well actually compared to most of the videos we put out on there. And people are like, "What the hell?" First of all, one person was like, "First of all, you're saying things as though they're fact, and you need to know that they're not." And I'm like, "Hey, I'm sorry that brain rot has reached you to the point where you think that when someone says a subjective thing, that they need to always add, in my opinion, into a sentence. The fact that someone says something subjective inherently implies that it is an opinion. And I'm sorry that I'm so convincing that it sounds like it's fact. I'm glad that I've actually been trained long enough as a speaker and as a compelling instructor, as a teacher, to help demonstrate that fact. But, be that as it may. But yeah, I respect the idea of keeping the Batman over there and being its own universe that Matt Reeves completely controls. But on the other hand, Batman's never been in that context. Batman has never been a character that one person gets to have complete and utter domination over, unless you count the Chris Nolan trilogy. And even then, it got quagmired because of, the loss of Heath Ledger and so forth. So, I mean, I've heard rumor, and I can't say this, and in my opinion, I don't actually know if this is true or not, but I heard that Christian Bale was offered like an untold sum of money to return to be Batman when the Zack Snyder universe was being invented. So like, I feel like there's already a precedent to allow the Batman to be part of another universe. So I'm in. Anyway, but yeah. Oh, but just ignore all that crap. I still think they're going to be great. I'm really looking forward to the next Batman movie, but I don't think I'll watch a Penguin show. Hey, with the face, this is blasphemous thing to say, but I hope they do with Alfred the same way they did to Pa Kent and keep him dead for some years and have Bruce be the Bat patriarch without the elder guidance, so to speak. I mean, he's been like that for over 5 years, man. It's been a long time in comics that there has been no Alfred and Batman has missed him, and no one's really stepped up. Now, I don't. I think that there's a concern where it's like, oh, if we let Batman step up, then we're gonna get into Batman Beyond territory. You know, like an old Batman who's like, I'm tired and I'm broken and I need to be replaced. And old man, you're gonna get you're gonna have to stop at some point. I don't necessarily want to read about that Batman, but I'm sure that DC is walking that tightrope every day. Jamzilla, hey Sal, hey, are you excited for the upcoming Joe Kelly Spider-Man event? I'm not crazy about his Spider book, so I hope they find someone else after this. I have no doubt that Joe Kelly's only doing that one arc, the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man or something like that. Like I don't like Joe Kelly Spider-Man. I love Joe Kelly as a writer and as a creative. He has a YouTube channel that he hasn't visited in about a year, so you should check it out because it's great stuff. But yeah, I didn't really like nonstop Spider-Man, so like we'll see. But I will read it because Joe Kelly is a great writer, and there's always an opportunity for a great new Spider-Man run. So I'll check that out. But yeah, I mean, you be careful what you wish for, man. If Joe Kelly knocks it out of the park, I don't want him to leave. But if all he wants to do is this one arc, that's a great idea too. The new Ethan, appreciate everything you guys do as always. Thanks for the amazing entertainment. Any hopes for Batman Part 2? Honestly, I just hope it's cool and self-contained. And when I say self-contained, I mean like I don't want it to be like, and here's Clayface and Mr. Freeze and Man-Bat and Ventriloquist. And like I'm like, because I'm kind of like hoping that the Batman is one day folded into the DC universe, I kind of don't want him to just show you all the villains and then go, and they're all gritty and real. I walked the razor's edge between fantasy and reality to give you Clayface. You know, I don't want him to just go, I'm trying to future proof my own like work by throwing everything at the wall. Like I'd rather it just be, especially Batman in the wintertime. Oh, fantastic idea. I'm in. But also I want to see a Batman story that's kind of like the Batman, where it's like, it's about Gotham, it's about Batman, it's about whoever he's teaming up with, if he teams up with anybody. But it's this villain, you know? I know people are like, Hush. And I'm like, didn't they say the last one? So I just hope it's small and cool. Hohen, thank you so much for hyping up Gotham City Year One. Ended up being my favorite reads of the year. Keep up the good work. Love you guys. Thanks, Owen. Nice. Gotham City Year One's amazing. It might be a back issues in 2 weeks. Who knows? A secret boss. Get well soon, Tiffany. I will send that message along. Hayden Hamilton, always thought you, Andy, and Ethan would be so funny. I agree. Andy's a fantastic personality and a really great guy as well. Ethan, of course, adds anything to the room he enters. So I'd love to see that. It's just a question of getting Andy out in New Jersey, which is going to be, hard to do. Avery Trujillo just got here. How's it going? It's going good, man. How about you? Hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for your support. So getting into the recommendations for this week, Batman and Superman for World's Finest number 31 is happening. Yay! Eclipso versus Mark Waid. And this time with Adrian Gutierrez's art. I'm looking forward to this. I love this book. It's such a fantastic series. Superman 18, of course, Joshua Williamson and Jamal Campbell. Hellbound, another Absolute Power tie-in, but the Superman ones have been fire, so definitely worth checking out as well. If Tiffany were here, she'd recommend Ultimate X-Men number 7. Of course, Peach Momoko. Amazing series. It's not like your usual X-Men. It's not like anything you see from Western Comics. Definitely check that out. X-Men number 4. I think Tiffany's going to check out that issue. I'm off the X-Men bandwagon when it comes to this series. Wonder Woman number 13 is going to be tough to plug because it is also an Absolute Power tie-in with Wonder Woman and Damian teaming up, Tom King, Tony S. Daniel. This book is weird. I read a preview of this issue, and I'm like, I'm enjoying Tom King's Wonder Woman book, but I don't need another tie-in. I'm really good on that front. I don't know, man. But yeah, there's a book called Batman: The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween #0. It's a new edition of the last collaboration between Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. It's a prelude to to the Long Halloween, The Last Halloween. Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale. I'm going to check this out. Sounds fun. It's a neat little prologue to the Long Halloween, even though I think like year one really is the prologue to it. But whatever. If Tiffany were here, she'd also recommend John Constantine, Hellblazer: Dead in America #9. This book is almost over. You have 2 or 3. 1, 2. This is the third to last issue of John Constantine or Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America. This book is just sick and insane, and it looks great. And if you are looking for like something that has a feeling of the old Vertigo books, this is the book for you. Let's see here. I think we are. Oh yeah, Thundercats #8 is coming out. Jenny Sparks #2 is dropping. Here we go. Yeah, Jenny Sparks #2 is dropping. That's Tom King, Jeff Spokes. Great looking book. The Moon is Following Us #1 from Daniel Warren Johnson and Riley Rossimo is coming out. This book is a Danny Warren Johnson book, so I got to get it. Riley Rossimo is doing the art though, so I'm excited to see how that comes together. That's gonna be awesome. Oh, and I can talk about this. Tom King's Black Canary book. I got to read it, and it's great. It's beautiful, gorgeous looking art, and and it's a Tom King character study. Great framing device about boxing, fighting, but has that feeling of like a classic boxer movie. Like Creed or Rocky or Raging Bull. But yeah, so those are cool. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't already decided to jump on board for Black Canary. That book is just, if you like Tom King's work, then you're going to love it. If you don't like Tom King's work, you might want to skip it, but I won't be. If Tiffany were here, she'd also check out Sabir Pirzada and Sean Damian Hill's Spirits of Vengeance. Johnny Blaze, Danny Ketch, Robbie Reyes, The Hood, and Kushala. Here we go. That sounds fun. We'll see how that goes. And Batman Day 2024, they are re-releasing the Batman Elmer Fudd special from Tom King and Lee Weeks. If you have not, statistically speaking, you probably haven't seen it. There is an episode of Back Issues about Tom King's book, Elmer Fudd Batman. It's a really great episode. We shot it at New York Comic Con, I believe, last year. It was a really fun episode, and it was one of our lowest viewed episodes of the year. Tom King's in the episode, and it's really fun. But it worked. We had a set and everything. It was really just a normal episode of the show. But people did not check that out. Maybe because of the Elmer Fudd thing. I don't know. But those are recommendations. Cam says, I've been buying and giving compact copies of All-Star Superman to everyone I come across, libraries, friends, etc. The new initiative is great. That's fantastic. You are doing the Lord's work, my friend. Congratulations on hearing the call. Benjamin Loudly, art quality has really picked up throughout the comic industry. Do you think this is because artists are just more talented or because they're using more assistants like AI, 3D models, etc.? Benjamin, that's an interesting point. I will say that I don't think that anyone has been improved by the resurgence of AI or machine learning in art, but I will say to the point of like the uptick in quality, it really is about sensibility. It's not necessarily that there are better artists today than there were in yesteryear. Because, of course, art is subjective, and there is some phenomenal, groundbreaking art from 30, 40, 60 years ago. I mean, Neil Adams' Batman looked nothing like any book on the shelves at the time of that book's release, and yet, at the same time, like when you think about like 10 years later, more people are aping off that style, so more books like elevated in quality, but it's not that the quality elevated, it's more that people adapted their style. So, like, style ebbs and flows, style changes. I think it has more to do with the fact that there are more artists working today than there were back in the day. I think it's more that like we are publishing more books. There are more opportunities to get stories, comic stories out there when it comes to web comics or digital comics or independent comics or self-publishing comics, or just a larger amount of books being printed. I think that it's just, we have more artists today, so we're getting to see a larger spectrum of artists and their work. And because there are more artists working today, and because we are a more global consciousness of a people, we have conditioned ourselves to be more accepting and embracing of different art styles. And so I think that it's not necessarily that there's better art today, but it's that there's more art than ever being made today. And we are more open to the different styles than we ever have before. And so as a result, it seems like our cup runneth over. And that's because it more or less is. So Induced Fear, thank you very much for your generosity, man. Thank you so much. Always happy to catch a live show. Pre-ordered my copy of Terminator, and I hope Tiffany feels better. Well, thank you very much, Induced Fear. Thank you so much for your support and your generosity. Man, I am so hyped about Terminator. I hope folks check it out and give it a opportunity. I think it's going to be really, really awesome. I love Luke Sparrow's art on Declan Shalvey's story. I also am a huge fan of Colin Craker's art on my story. But the projection, the plan, the trajectory of that book is just fantastic. The level of creative freedom that the team has gotten has been phenomenal, and I think that there's some nice hubbub about the book, and I hope people give it a shot. Michael Stevens says, "Feel better, Tiffany. Talk to Strange's orders." Aw. I'm sure she appreciates that. But yeah, man, if you haven't already pre-ordered Terminator #1, today's your last day. If not, if you want a copy, I know a great place you can pick one up. You can go to Zap Comics in Wayne, New Jersey on October 9th, which is the day the book drops. In Zap Comics in Wayne, New Jersey on October 9th between 5 and 7 p.m., I will be in the store with a table and about 100 copies of Terminator #1 that I'll be signing and making available. If you are at New York Comic Con and you see me, bring your copy of Terminator to me and I will be happy to sign it because I'll be there as well. And it'll be happening, I think, like a week or two after the release of Terminator. So that's going to be awesome. Yeah, it'll be a Terminator bonanza. Thank you so much for indulging me and allowing me to do this solo episode of Off the Rack. Obviously, much weaker than it would have been if I'd have my my 50% of the show here. But I do appreciate everything that you guys did and were in this show. Thank you to our super chatters for sponsoring today's show and making the lights continue to be on and the internet to continue to be as reliable as it can be in this dungeon of a studio. Thank you to our chat for being so kind and sweet and respectful, and to our special guests who have been here and popped in. Special shout out to Jeff Thorne and Gavin Guidry for just classing up the joint. We do appreciate you. If you like the video, subscribe to our channel and click the bell for notifications. You will know when we are going live, which is always on Mondays around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Because Tiffany was sick, I decided to go ahead and get that front loaded, do the show. It comes out, you check it out. There's so much more on this channel you can watch. I had a full-ass conversation with Scott Snyder that you really need to check out. I need to coordinate with Josh so we can do another episode of All Stars. Make sure to check out everything we have here. And Tiffany may still be playing video games this week, so keep an eye out on youtube.com at ComicPop Plays, and of course at twitch.tv/ComicPop to make sure that you see her playing video games with various members of the ComicPop team. And we'll see you guys next time with another episode. Of course, I am Sal, and we'll see you guys next time. So long, everybody.